get eggs from I have local egg guy. You basically wash them. When you wash them, it cleans off the bloom, and then you basically can protect yourself from getting the fecal material. When you wash the bloom off, after that point, the eggs don't last as long. They're like the commercial eggs that you buy in the store. So if you want to keep your eggs longer, you don't wash them before you get them. And it's just basically how our immune system, or the chicken immune system, lives. You ever wonder, like, okay, you ever hear of E. coli? Yes, but you get comes out from poop, okay? And how come we don't live with the constant bladder infection or E. coli sepsis? You ever wonder about that? We have E. coli that lives in our intestines, 30 odd feet of it, right? Happily lives there. Why don't we get a UTI all the time? Why don't we have sepsis all the time? You ever think about that? No. When you leave the class, maybe you will. I don't know. But it has to do with your immune system and how we have things that are protected or not. So our immune system is basically where our body meets the environment, the outside world, protects us from it, okay? And that's what the immune system has been developed for us. And so there's certain sites where we allow pathogens to live, like E. coli in our intestines, and others where if E. coli is in our bloodstream, it's an emergency, and we get really, really sick. It all has to do with location and site, and missile event, okay? So basically, our immune system prevents us from having invaders, right? It's really good to keep the stuff out that doesn't belong there. But if our immune system is hypervigilant, then we get sick. It's called an autoimmune disease, okay? So we're always trying to have this balance between our immune system working just right, but not working too much. And if you didn't have an immune system, all those things that live in the environment, all the bacteria, the prions, and all that stuff, would get us really sick. Does that make sense? So we gotta have it, but too much is not too good, too little is not too good. So there's all these different type of pathogens that are out to get us. They can be from prions, viruses. You don't have to know all the different things, just know a lot of things that are in the environment, or beyond bacteria. There's more things in that bacteria that will get us sick. Okay? So there's all this type of bacteria, parasites. And parasites live on us, and we live with them, and they help the organism, but they don't kill the organism. If they kill the organism, they lose their house. So it's not a good thing. Okay? So at the end of the lecture, why am I doing this? At the end of the lecture, you're going to know about anaphylaxis, how it can kill someone, how anaphylaxis is really very different from someone having allergies, how treating anaphylaxis with Benadryl doesn't work, and why. Okay? Or you have to treat anaphylaxis with Epi, and why, what the difference is. It's really, really important to understand it. Most lay people don't understand it, and they want to just take the Benadryl. So if you understand the immune system, how it works, go get it. So here's all these things that are out to get us. I mean, they're out to like do us from protozoa, fungi, prokaryote, viruses, all these things. We can treat medications wise, but it's best to kill it before it gets to be a problem. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of. So how does your body prevent us from getting infections? Okay, so there's a few different ways. We have external defenses. So think about you have skin, right? All covers you. So if your skin gets a cut in it, okay, what's your chance of getting a skin infection? It increases dramatically. Why? Because your barrier has now been broken down. Okay? What lives on your skin? You're going to see this. You see people with skin infections all the time. Cellulitis, right? What's on your skin? Bacteria. You know what type of bacteria it is? Staph and strep, typically. So when people go swimming, and they go swimming with stitches in them, basically stitches act as a ladder for the bacteria, and they get an infection because their external defenses. The skin has now been broken. The barrier has now been broken. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So what it's trying to do with what you guys are doing is, why did this person get sick? Because if I can figure out why this person got sick, maybe I can treat them better. Does that make sense? So like the skin, if someone has catheters in, they're more likely to get infection, right? They have Foley catheters in, they have ET tubes, G tubes, all the different accoutrements that would come with people when you treat them, right? And They get sick because it's plastic and the bacteria go in. One in particular is Pseudomonas. Okay, so they have a more chance of getting sick. So when we see someone who has tubes that or pierce their external defenses, it's like, oh, I got to think about maybe that's why they're coughing. Maybe they have pneumonia. I got to think about they have a foliant. Maybe that's what's going on, why they have sepsis. So that's why they're weak, because they were foliant. So you have to add that in to your differential. Does that make sense? Just tell me if it doesn't. I can just. So here's all the different ways we try to keep stuff out. We have tears. You ever get stuff in your eye and your eye starts to tear? It's to do two things. One is to get rid of crap that's there, and two is to lubricate your eye so your cornea doesn't end up with an abrasion. This helps to start the healing faster. Your mucus, your snot. We are a snotting, mucusy bunch of creatures. We have snot in our nose. We have snot in our throat. In our lungs, we have these little things called cilia that push snot up. Okay, it helps clear out the lungs. So you ever see people who smoke cigarettes for a bazillion years and they stop smoking? And then what do they say? I've never been sicker in my entire life. I'm now coughing up yellow and green stuff. And I applaud them. I say, congratulations, your lungs are getting cleared out. And they look like, what? So you had all that soot on your cilia, stopping your natural defenses from cleaning out your lungs. And now they're going to get cleaned out. So you're finally cleaning out that room. Isn't that a wonderful thing? So if you just know that stuff, say, oh, when did you stop smoking? This could be part of it. It's not necessarily bacteria. This whole disease is that people don't make enough mucus in their lungs. There's stuff that goes on in your intestines. We have immune system in the intestines called pyruvate patches. So anyone ever eats something that disagrees with them and then have it poops? And you go, why is that? I mean, that's your immune system working, trying to get the crap out as fast as you can, because it irritated the lining of your lungs. I'm sorry, my intestines. Okay? And there's gastric acid. A lot of times when people are on acids for a long period of time, your pH in your stomach is basically an acid, and it will kill a lot of stuff that comes in. Do you think our food is sterilized? What we put in our mouths is sterilized. What we eat is sterilized. People get all upset. You drop something on the ground, oh my God, it's got dirt on it. It's like, have you ever read the amount of contamination that's in your food? Mice, droppings, hair, and all that bacteria. There's a certain level that they say is okay. And part of it has to do with our natural defenses. Part of it is it's impossible to sterilize your food. If you sterilize your food, you basically would kill a lot of the nutrients in it with the heat and all. Okay? So, I know, when am I going to get to epi, right? When am I going to get to the good stuff? Because that's what you're here. So you have to understand when someone has their immune system is off, that there are more chances of them getting sick. And why? A lot of people get sick because their immune system, someone has a burn. Okay, so we have natural immunity, and that's basically our inflammatory response is trying to kill what's there. It can be infection, and when you get in our body's trying to kill what's there, it's like a little bomb. These mast cells, the complement, so think of little bombs, and they get set off, detonated, and all the explosion happens. Okay, so it kills the bacteria, kills the prions, kills the viruses, yippee yahoo. But there's a lot of collateral damage, and the collateral damage is you get capillary dilatation, you get edema, you get joint swelling, you get fevers, you have all this debris that needs to get cleaned up after the explosion happens. Okay, so it's not a perfect system. Questions so far? So natural immunity has to do with the lymph system. Our ability to recognize an invader is a huge thing. How do we know something's a friend or foe? Why do we can eat most things, but then let's say if we go and try to eat a little bit of venom from a snake, or perhaps we eat some food that's a toxin to us, we get sick, right? So our body first has to recognize that that stuff that we're eating is not good for us. Whether it's a rotten piece of hamburger that's sat outside and now has salmonella on it, our body has to recognize something's bad. So it recognizes something's bad by having an inflammatory response. And then we build cells to know about. So how do you know if you're looking for something that's bad, that's going to bother you, okay? What's important on an antigen? Something's going to disturb you. How much have you taken, right? But you take in something, you want to know, how much do I need to take in to get me sick? That's why some things, you need a little bit to get you sick, a little bit of virus, and sometimes you need a lot more for certain types of diseases. So it has to do with the amount, okay? It also has to do with the size of the particle. Little itty bitty particles sometimes don't bother you. If you have a lot of itty bitty particles, it won't bother you. If it's a big particle, a big protein, it tends to get more attention, okay? One person can slip in through the fence, a whole mess of a whole 30 people trying to get through a fence, you'd take notice, okay? Something big going through a security fence, you'll notice. Something small you might not notice, so you need more of them. How much is it? How big is it? And the configuration. Is it a really tall thing that you can see in the distance, those people are stacked in? Or is it one person in line? Okay, the configuration, the size, the amount, and how different it is than you will tell your immune system whether to be upset or not. Those are important things. Why? One thing will bother you. Sometimes people can have a lot of, let's say, really spicy food, but you get over that line and you get really sick. Right? Does that make sense? Well, so you basically have immunity, okay? That helps us do, and there's two types of immunity. One is natural, and one is active. So the natural is what you're born with, okay? It's, you have it from being born, you went through the placenta, okay? And the one that we get most interested in is the active immunity that happens after you.
Bless you.
Okay? And that's when you're exposed to an antigen. So all these terms make people crazy. Most people crazy. Let's just go an antigen, okay? Remember, not everything that you're exposed to can make your immune system upset. Does water make your immune system upset? No. Is drinking gasoline? Yes. It's obnoxious, right? We don't like it for many reasons, right? But if it gets into our stomach and mind, boy, we have a lot of reaction to it, okay? So, like I said, is it a foreign material? Gasoline. How big is a particle? Is it a complex thing? Is it what's small molecules, multiple? And how much? This is really important to know why someone would be bothered by something. Okay. So basically, we have two types. If you think you have, so you ever hear T cells and B cells? All right. So basically, bone marrow, you have lymphocytes. And then in your thymus, you have T cells. This is important to know that there's T cells and B cells. Okay. The T cells, or if you think of them as your white blood cells, okay? If you think of them as your white blood cells. So what do they do? What does your white blood cells do? I see something, you get a splinter, right? What happens when you get a splinter? Philip has splinters, right? What happens when you get a splinter? You get swelling, you get pus. Guess what makes the pus? White blood cells. They're basically trying to engulf it, digest it, and extrude it. Okay? You don't really have a big immune response to that. You basically are having T cells and white blood cells, and they surround and digest. That's what they do. So think of a splinter. The B cells come from your spleen and lymph nodes. Again, this is important. So guess what B cells do? What do they make? Antibodies. You got it. Antibodies. So I stink at writing. If anyone wants to take over the writing, please do. Because I stink on boards. I hate it. So you make antibodies, okay? Antibodies are really different than T cells. T cells, it doesn't matter if you've seen it once, twice, 500 times. This doesn't make a memory about it. It's like, oh my God, there's an invader, let me surround it, let me eat it, and I'm done with it, okay? And that is basically a short, it happens really quickly, and that's its job. I'm gonna surround it, I'm gonna be Pac-Man and eat it, okay? The B cells make antibodies. It takes a while to make antibodies, right? It's not instantaneous, it can take a day or two, okay? So that's long, takes longer for it to happen, and there's a memory for it. It's more of a lock and key. So there's all these different types. Do you understand the concept? Two types of keys. Did I tell you it's important that you need to know it? Why would you need to know it? Testing, quizzes for your future life. So cell mediated is the white blood cells. This is cell mediated. These terms, they keep, a lot of them are antiquated, they keep using them over and over again. No antibodies, no memory. It doesn't matter how many times you see a splinter, they're going to do Pac-Man. It's a physical attack. Humoral is the B cells, okay? So there's a whole different group of humoral. Isn't that nice to try to memorize that? If I asked you how to memorize that, you'd be like, oh, this will be done in 2 seconds, right? I can memorize it. But there's an easy way to know how to learn this.
What do you want?
To clean it? Can you use one of these things? Yep. Oh, good. Again, if someone wants to write for me, I'm happy with that.
I can write for you if you'd like.
Good. Write gamed.
Okay.
I love gamed. So if you remember gamed, you can then learn all 5 types of, okay? Are you ready? So G is IgG, okay? So you can say goo goo gaga goo. It's goo. It's also the greatest amount. So what's the biggest amount of immunoglobulin type? It's IgG. The greatest, the biggest, 80%. Okay? Does that make sense to you? It lives in the plasma. It can go through the placenta, crosses to the baby, and it uses complement system. Okay? Because location of where this stuff is helps you figure out how to treat them. Okay? IgA is next. IgA. Think of fluids. Taking a shower, getting fluids. So all things that are fluids. What's the fluids that we have? Saliva, yep. Saliva, sweat, mucous membranes, colostrum. And this stops the bacteria, virins, pyrins, all that stuff from entering by slime. You ever pick up a toad, a snake? They've got slime. This is our slime, IgA. Okay, it's our slime. Okay. Next is M. It's 15% of what we make for our immune system. 15% of the antibodies are IgM. I think of IgM as immediate. That's the one that works immediately. What's the one that's going to go up first? IgM. It's immediate. Okay? I'm just trying to give you hooks to learn these because it always makes people crazy. It's the first one. It's the largest particle. It's uses complement, and it's a type 2 reaction. We'll get to the different reactions, and it is very, very specific. Okay. IgE. Ever heard of IgE? Okay, where does IgE live? This is the part about anaphylaxis that really makes so much sense. IgE is about anaphylaxis, okay? And so IgE lives in the respiratory mucosa, in the lymphatic system, in the GI tract, in Peyer's patches, okay? Its prime way of killing is the histamine. You've heard of histamine. Histamine releases, okay? So, the histamine release binds the mast cell, you get that explosion, boom, of that particle, and the mast cell has all these bazillion types of enzymes that come out and kill it. It's great if it just can kill and be contained, right? But then there's the debris that happens and you get secondary problems, okay? So when histamine gets released and the mast cell goes exploding, what happens in the respiratory mucosa? Let's start with just let's just start with blood vessels, okay? The blood vessels will dilate, okay? When blood vessels dilate and then they get more leaky, you lose a lot of fluids. When someone has anaphylaxis, they will lose their fluid volume in their vascular bed will go down by 35% within 2 to 3 minutes. Do I have your attention? 35% of your vascular volume gone, 2 to 3 minutes. How are you going to treat that? What are you going to do?
Vasoconstrictor.
Fluids and epi, because epi will help constrict, vasoconstrict, okay? What happens in your lungs with the respiratory mucosa, okay? When the histamine gets released, okay, in the lungs, what happens there is you're going to have a lot of mucus. They're going to have a lot of edema, and it's from the destruction and the permeability of the blood cells. So it's not like edema that you get from CHF. It's edema from the cells being destroyed, not working properly. That's why when someone has anaphylaxis, giving them Lasix isn't going to work because they have leaks. Does that make sense? So Lasix is not a treatment for anaphylaxis. You listen to them; they can have wheezes. It's not going to work. You need to repair the barrier. That's where the epi comes in. Leaky blood vessels. What happens to your smooth muscle when you have IgG and anaphylaxis? What happens there? I'll give you 2 choices. It can relax or constrict. Who says relax? Blood vessels dilate, and the smooth muscle will contract. Right? So when IgG gets stimulated and the mast cells degranulate in your lungs, you have constriction. And that's what you have. Followed by loss of the cell layers, and you have the edema, the fluid, that can't get treated with Lasix. Does that make sense? That's why knowing which class and thinking about where the immunoglobulin lives primarily will help you figure out if someone says, I have an IgE problem, and they get anaphylaxis, like, oh man, they're going to have a bad time. Okay? And the last one is D cells, IG. And that is basically to amplify all the B cell things. We will probably know a lot more about D in the future. It's one of the ones that they're still figuring out. Okay? So, G, greatest amount IgG. Biggest, crosses placenta. A, slimes. All that makes the slime to protect us, okay? Saliva, sweat, mucus, colostrum. IgM, immediate response, okay? Here's a complement. E, anaphylaxis, the histamine release. That's what's going to go on. That's what you really, really need to concentrate on. Blood vessels are going to dilate. Smooth muscles are going to contract and have mucus and edema in the lungs. Okay, this is why we're studying immunology here. Okay? Did I say that's important? It's very important. It's really, really, really. It's the primary stuff. Okay? Thank you for learning so much.
You're welcome.
I think I am horrible.
Happy to help.
Horrible. So, you know how the should I put this up? Can we put this up for a second?
Yeah.
I'll just make a little graph. So, you've all been heard about you can get exposed to something new. Like you get a shot, you eat some bad food, you get exposed to, I don't know, bad strep or something. And how does your immune system work? You have an idea there, right? So, we do this, we go. Okay. So here, I got exposed to something. Okay? What do you think is the first thing that's going to happen immediately? Which one's going to go up? IgG or IgM? IgM, right? So the IgM is going to start to say, we're going to take care of you, don't worry, I got that. Okay? And the IgG, which is basically specific, learns what's, IgM is like a shotgun. Okay? IgG is more like a sharpshooter. Or you can say IgM is like an ER doctor. Someone comes in, they're sick. We'll order one of everything. IgG is like internal medicine. I'll take one of that, one of that, and one of that. I don't need all this other crap because I know what I'm doing. The reason why the I'm an ER doctor too. The reason why the IgM. So what happens is then the IgG gets released. It takes a little while, and the IgG gets released. The IgM peaks and then goes back down. The IgG goes, I got this one. I'm going to remember this intruder for a very, very long time. I'm going to know if I get a secondary exposure. I'm going to be ready to take care of it. They're not going to get sick again. It's the first exposure. So this one comes back down, like here. All of a sudden, you get another exposure. What a lucky person. Got another exposure. Because the IgG recognizes it, it is now able to get replicated much faster because the machinery is all set and really spikes really high. The IgM is like, yeah, it's about the same as before, and it'll come down. Okay? But this is your IgG is your memory. That's why if you get vaccines or you're exposed to something, some E. coli, you have a memory and your body's able to fight it off. Not every day is the same day. That's why when someone says someone's immune system's not as robust, it has to do with this. If someone has a protein problem, protein manufacturing problem in the body, they don't have a good immune system. Okay? Because they can't manufacture stuff. Does this make sense? So the primary response is different than the secondary. The primary is what you first, when you first got exposed to something. The secondary is when you got exposed again, the IgG works much quicker. Okay? But there's still a delay. IgG can take a day or two to fire. That's why sometimes when people get sick, they give them the Tylenol and Motrin, they start to get better, and all of a sudden, they get sick again for a little bit because this goes down and the IgG takes over and it starts a two-phase, triphasic illness phase. You don't need to know that. Never mind. Does that make sense though? A little bit why? You've heard this stuff before, right? On commercials and TVs and radios and things like that. Okay. So, those are really, really important concepts to know what to do. All right. Yeah. Yes, please. So remember games, okay? You have to know your differences of the antibodies. Oh, okay, sure. Hope you have the next one. So this all leads up to how. You need to know this. Humoral and cell. Gone through that. So how our body now how do you see diseases? How does our body fight? We classify them basically into 4 different types of reactions. They call it hypersensitivity disorders. You ever hear of that? Kind of, sort of. And so there's type 1, 2, 3, and 4. Type 1, they finally got it right, is the IgE, which is for anaphylaxis, right? And that's when you have the mast cells, the histamine release. So you think of bee stings, you think of someone ate peanuts. And so type 1, you're having the bronchal constriction, vasodilation, the edema. You're going to have edema where? If you have edema in your larynx, what does the person talk to you about? They're having an allergic reaction. How do you first know that they're having? You don't see a rash or anything like that. They can go like that, but before they go like, they say, my voice is off, right? They have swelling in the vocal cords, actually. And sometimes one of the first signs of someone having anaphylaxis is their voice is gone. Not gone, is different. And when someone says that, oh, it's not that, oh, I'm so sorry, you're nervous. It's like, no, they're having anaphylaxis. That's type 1. Type